Hello everyone. So I wanted to again continue with these videos on how to spell in Tibetan, and there's a particular spelling phenomenon that I wanted to cover that I kind of mentioned in the first video, but I didn't really clarify. It has to do with the ratag, okay, this ratag here, because it always changes the sound of the root letter in a significant way. So let's discuss that here, okay? So starting with the prefix ba here, okay? Again, we know this is a prefix because ba is one of our prefixes, and also right in the second column of this syllable, there is superscript sa, and then there's a subscript, the ratag, okay? This curvy little fellow at the bottom, right? And then we also have a vowel marker, the shabchu, right? So anytime you have a superscript or a subscript or a vowel marker, right, then you can identify that the root letter, the main letter, is in that column, right? So we start with the prefix ba, okay? Again, when we spell out the prefix, okay, just to spell it out, we add an o sound, ba-o, okay? The prefix itself won't get pronounced in the actual pronunciation of the word, but we do have to spell it out like that. Bao, okay? And then we go to the next, and we go from top to bottom, right? Always from top to bottom when you're spelling out, right? And then you save the vowel marker for last as you spell it out, okay? So we start with the sa, okay? And then we go down to ga here, okay? Now, because this ga, normally ga has a little bit of an aspiration sound, okay? A lot of people who start to learn Tibetan see the transliteration of this ga as more like a G-A ga sound, right? But actually, it only becomes the English G sound when there are other letters that are added onto it, such as a prefix or a superscript, okay? So when you have a prefix or a superscript with this ka, right, then it loses aspiration, and that goes for the other letters that have aspiration too, okay? So then this becomes more like the English ga sound, right? Sa, ga, tag, ga, okay? So because this is put below the sa, we call it ga, tag, right? You may have noticed by now that when you put letters below other letters, right, then they get this tag sound in the spelling, right? Sa, ga, tag, ga, right? Ga, okay? Sa, ga, ta, ga, and then we go to the ratag, right? So we go from top to bottom. Sa, ga, ta, ga, rata, ja, okay? Ja. So you'll notice that this ratag then gives it kind of like a DR sound, okay? It's not exactly like the DR sound, but a little bit. So ja, ja, like that, okay? So it's kind of like a hard D sound, but then with a little bit of an R in there, okay? But it's okay to just say it more like a dra for now, if that's easy for you as an English speaker or whatever your native language is, okay? Just try to listen to how it's pronounced, right, and try to better pronounce it as best you can, right? So sa, gata, ga, rata, ja, okay, ja. So there it loses aspiration still, right, because of the superscript and the prefix, okay? And then finally we go to the vowel marker. Sa, gata, ga, rata, ja, shabchu, dru, okay, dru. So then it gets a dru sound, right? And so going back to this ratag, right, so just remember, if you see any letter with the ratag, then it's going to get basically some kind of a like ja sound. Just depends on whether it's high tone, low tone, neutral tone, does it have aspiration or not, right? And then there are slight differences, right? But more or less it gets some kind of a ta or a dra sound, right? So this ends up getting like a dru sound, right? So bao, sa, gata, ga, rata, ja, shabchu, dru, and then we go to the suffix here. The suffix goes after the root letter, right? So the suffix is ba. So droop, okay? And then we have the post suffix sa, right? And when sa is a suffix or a post suffix, it itself is silent. So here it doesn't affect the sound in any way, it just changes the spelling. Okay? And so this word ends up getting pronounced as droop. Bao sa gata ga rata ja sha chu dru ba sa droop. Droop. Okay? So this is an interesting word because it has a lot of different spelling rules in one syllable, right? So I thought it would be very useful to show this word. It's also interesting in meaning. It's the past tense of the verb droop, right? If you just take off that sa there, right, then it becomes basically the future tense, okay? But anyhow, with this sa, then it shows again how to spell it with the post suffix, so that's kind of nice. That's why I chose the past tense here. So this is the past tense verb droop, which can have several different meanings depending on context, which is also super interesting, right? So it can basically mean to accomplish something volitionally, kind of. This is an important concept in Tibetan grammar as well, the difference between volitional and non-volitional words. So this is volitional, meaning something that is done intentionally, right? Intentionally accomplishing something or making something happening, right? So the non-volitional form of this is generally meaning to be accomplished, like often in a spiritual sense, right? To gain some accomplishment or to accomplish some goal, right? So droop here means to bring about that accomplishment, to accomplish, right? It can also in some cases mean basically just to practice, right? Like in a spiritual sense, to do some kind of spiritual practice, right? To practice something, right? And then in logic, for example, it can mean to prove something or establish something as true. So this is a very useful word to know. And again, this is in the past tense because of this sa. And it's also useful to remember that if you see a verb that's ending in sa, if it's a volitional verb, like then it often ends. If it's a volitional or a non-volitional verb, if it ends in the sa, then it is often in the past tense and sometimes in the imperative tense, basically imperative meaning a command, right? So it's very useful to know this as a spelling rule. It'll help you identify different kinds of verbs. Okay, so I hope that you found today's lesson useful, and this is a very important concept to understand how the rata will change the sound of the letter that it gets attached to. So please make note of that, and it will be very helpful when you see spellings like this in the future. Okay, thank you very much. I really hope that you're enjoying these videos and that you're finding them helpful and useful in your study of Tibetan language. Thank you very much. See you later.